Now, Max Verstappen dropped a bombshell during the Mexican Grand Prix as he decided he was not going to speak to Sky Sports. It was not only him, but Red Bull as well that practiced a complete boycott of the channel. Now, Sky Sports is the F1 broadcaster at many of the key markets for Formula 1. Even in United States, ESPN uses Sky Sports race broadcast as its official broadcast. It's safe to say that Sky Sports is one of, if not the biggest media presence across the Formula 1 paddock. So when the Formula 1 world champion decided that he did not want to appear on their cameras, it was a concern. Talking to media after the Mexican Grand Prix, where he won the record 14th race, Verstappen responded to why there was a complete boycott of Sky Sports. According to him, this had to do with the constant disrespect not only him but his team was subjected to all season. Let's hear what he had to say.
Hi, Tom Carey, Telegraph. A question for Max. Congratulations on the win. We understand that you took the decision not to speak to Sky Sports after the race and after taking pole yesterday as well, I think. And not just you, but also Christian and Helmut and Checo as well. Could you just explain a little bit about why you've taken that decision and how long you might keep that up for?
It had nothing to do with this weekend, but this year it's been a constant, kind of like digging, being disrespectful, especially one particular person. And at one point it's enough, I don't accept it. You can't live in the past. You just have to move on. And at the moment, social media is a very toxic place. And if you are constantly being like that live on TV, you make it only worse. Instead of trying to make it better in the world, you keep disrespecting me. And at one point, I'm not tolerating it anymore. So that's why I decided to stop answering.
Now, according to multiple reports, and it's something that has become clear, is that the singular person that Max Verstappen is talking about is Ted Kravitz. And the bone of contention has been his commentary over Max Verstappen's title win last season. Now, after Mexico, Christian Horner clarified that the boycott was for a single race, and it would be back to business as usual in Brazil. This weekend, however, according to Horner, it was all about sending a message and making it clear that the narrative building against Red Bull and Max Verstappen needed to stop. What this boycott, however, also did was that it reignited the debate around F1's British bias when it comes to the kind of coverage the sport gets. It is a term that gets thrown around far too often these days by the F1 fans, and somewhere down the line, I feel it needed to be addressed. Now, before we go ahead and talk about the British bias in the F1 media, I think it's important we answer one critical question. Was Max Verstappen even justified in boycotting Sky Sports during the Mexican Grand Prix? Now, to answer that question is not that simple. First of all, Max Verstappen is free to choose who he wants to talk to and who he doesn't. According to multiple publications, the contentious bit was what Ted Kravitz said in his TED notebook after the US Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen had once again beaten Lewis Hamilton. Now let's hear what he had to say.
Almost said 8-time world champion. 7-time world champion goes into final race trying to be the greatest of all time and win championship, gets robbed, comes back. His next year's car is rubbish, or not rubbish. Next year's car is, in movie sense, his next year's car is rubbish. Doesn't win a race all year, and then finally comes back at a track where he could win the first race all year, is battling with the same guy who won the race that he was robbed in the previous year, and manages to finish ahead of him. What a script and a story that would have been. So, Brad, if you're listening, that's not a bad one. I don't know if he's in the back of the Mercedes motorhome here with all the people and that man on the door. Maybe he is. But that's not the way the script turned out today, was it? Because the guy that beat him after being robbed, the 7-time world champion, actually overtook him because he's got a quicker car, because, of engineering and Formula One and design, and, well, pretty much because of that guy over there in the jeans on the left-hand side. So the romanticism of the movie that may or may not be with with Lewis Hamilton and Brad Pitt wasn't actually turned out today. It would have been had Lewis Hamilton won, but he didn't. It was Max Verstappen. Verstappen is around the paddock. He seems very happy with himself. He doesn't seem to be a driver able to win a championship in a normal way.
Now in this video there are three contentious parts. The first is where Ted Kravitz says that Lewis Hamilton was robbed of the title last season. The second is when he specifically says that the reason why Max Verstappen beat Lewis Hamilton this season or in Austin was primarily and pretty much predominantly because of the car that he had. And third was Ted Kravitz claiming that Max Verstappen is someone who is not capable of winning a championship in a normal way. Now if we look at this particular monologue in isolation, it's not that bad, to be very honest. It's just that, as Max Verstappen talked about, it's the accumulation of things that have been going on since last season. This is not the only instance when Ted Kravitz or other Sky Sports members made such comments. Earlier, even in the Mexican Grand Prix, Simon Lazenby had claimed that Max Verstappen's 2 titles were a result of Red Bull's cost cap breach, something that was vehemently opposed by Martin Brundle, by the way. Other than that, there have been multiple digs here and there, comments made about what happened in Abu Dhabi. I think we are all aware of it. Basically, what we can say is that there is a clear indication that the monologue by Ted Kravitz at Austin was not the reason behind the boycott. The decision was a result of the accumulation of things that have been said about Red Bull and how often what happened in Abu Dhabi has been brought up. Now to answer the question, was Max Verstappen justified? Maybe yes. If ultimately these are the things that are being said about you again and again and again, then I don't think there is anything wrong with a driver taking a stand and opting not to communicate and talk with a particular publication. Now, coming to the bigger issue at hand, the boycott of Sky Sports this weekend has once again brought to light the debate over the inherent British bias that the F1 media gets called out for by the Formula 1 fans. Especially right now when we talk about British bias. What has been interesting has been the reaction from the British media to the Sky Sports boycott by Max Verstappen. One publication has compared Max Verstappen to Vladimir Putin. Another publication, Motorsport Magazine, it has decided to dig into Max Verstappen's past when the Red Bull driver had used racial slurs. And the third one, it has decided to call Christian Horner a loser. First of all, I don't understand what Max Verstappen's past indignation has to do with him boycotting Sky Sports. How Max Verstappen using racial slurs in the past has anything to do with him boycotting Sky Sports is something I am not able to understand, and it seems completely misplaced. And this is where sometimes the problem comes up. Even if we keep Sky Sports and its coverage aside for a minute, it is these kind of opinion pieces that fuel hate and outrage amongst the fans. Comparing Max Verstappen to a dictator responsible for so many deaths should not be happening. Bringing up a driver's past in an opinion piece when it has no relation to the situation at hand should not be happening. These are nothing but cheap digs. And these actions have ultimately proven both Red Bull and Max Verstappen correct. Just look at the kind of abuse these guys are getting. Verstappen has the right to feel aggrieved by this targeting. And he can even claim that this vilification has been going on since he started battling Lewis Hamilton. The fact that Autosport of all publications can come out with a disgusting open letter to Max Verstappen just a day before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, in which it insinuates that Max Verstappen will crash into Lewis Hamilton. It just leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to impartial journalism. Let's make one thing clear. I'm not calling the entire F1 media British biased. Doing that would be wrong and unjust. Having said that, are there sections of media that are blatantly one-sided and because of their action it hurts the sport in general? Yes, they exist. There is no denying it. Now with the reigning world champion at loggerheads with the F1 official broadcaster, it does not look good. But could Sky Sports be even blamed for having a commentary or an inherent bias towards British drivers? Especially since Sky Sports is basically a British broadcaster and it not only caters to that audience but it generates extra revenues from them. At that point in time, you have to ask that a demand of neutral commentary is unfair. Sky generates revenue from British customers and it will try to cater to that particular audience. And for that, there is nothing to be frowned on. it is not Sky Sports' fault either, and it is not something that they're doing wrong in any which way. Having said that, it is a shortcoming of Formula 1 that it broadcasts a commentary of a regional broadcaster like Sky and distributes it all over the world. What Formula 1 needs, on the other hand, is a more neutral broadcast. Now, there are two ways to make it happen. First, it can either do it by revisiting the terms of arrangement in its contract with Sky Sports. Or the second way is the F1 TV broadcast. Now that is still in its nascent form, and it needs to be developed and invested and ultimately transformed into a global broadcast. Now, talking about the positives, the fact that the Max Verstappen Sky Sports boycott was supposed to be indefinite but got cut short to only one race. It speaks volumes of backroom dealings that have probably taken place by now. Stefano Domenicali has surely had a word with both Verstappen and Sky Sports, and he has probably made a few promises here and there when it comes to the kind of narrative building that will be there around Verstappen. Right now, we are at a very interesting phase in Formula 1. The reigning world champion has called out the biggest broadcaster of the sport. It will be interesting to see what happens next and whether there is constructive change on the way, because if it isn't, we might be looking at a complete boycott from Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Well, from Formula 1's point of view, it's safe to say that nobody wants that. So these are my views. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching and see you next time.